Welcome to Shred Sesh, the first student-led podcast out of UNCW's Department of Communication Studies. We are spotlighting leaders, legends, shaping the world of action sports culture, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jacob Travis. I'm here with my co-host, Christina Laeta.
Thank you, Jacob. So just a little bit of more background of who we are. We come from the class Com 395 at UNCW, led by instructor Garrett. We have a lot of fun, and we interview some legends in the action sports industry and kind of just like learn some advice about how to make it through. So today we have Candy Harris. She is a creative visionary. She is a creative marketing executive and a brand strategist with over 20 years of experience. So she's worked with companies such as Billabong and Stance, and she's currently the CEO and co-founder of Unlisted Brand Lab, which is a creative marketing agency based in California. Excuse my stuttering.
It is now time to welcome Candy Harris. We are thrilled to have you on the show, Candy.
Hi, guys. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
You co-founded Unlisted Brand Lab as a sister company to the Familie. How do these two companies work together, and what does a day at Unlisted look like for you?
Sure. Okay, so kind of first things first, Unlisted is a brand incubator and creative marketing agency. So that's the portion that I run. And then my partner, Steve Astafin, has a company called The Familie, and that's all talent representation. So everything from NFL to action sports to golf, so both sports and music. So they manage all the talent and we develop brands. So we work hand in hand together in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's I'm building brands and I want to incorporate talent into the mix. And so I dip into that team over there. And then other times they've got marquee talent that they're building brands for, or that they need help in just building out sort of the athlete's personal brand. And so we'll help them do that. So we work very hand in hand together, and we're kind of a sort of like a secret weapon of sorts, because in marketing, the way that we can work with all the agents that sit on the Familie side is they're sort of niche marketers, right, in their world. So if you have a football agent or a music agent, let's say one of our country music agents, if we're working on a boot brand or we're working on something that is dipping into that field, they're just really well networked and obviously kind of market experts sort of in that audience. So it's a nice cheat code for us to have that team to collaborate with.
That's actually really cool. It makes me think of like, even when it comes to fashion, like when you see a certain athlete or someone just like in a specific industry wearing an outfit that like doesn't make sense to them, like you almost think like who's their stylist, like you kind of almost get confused about the branding that they're going for. So I think people don't realize how important companies like this are, because it helps you establish who you are in an industry.
And usually if you think about it, like a lot of music artists, right, if they're going to drop an album and that album takes on a particular creative aesthetic, it starts to make sense when you sort of backtrack. Everything's very methodical and really well thought out. Like the styling and the choices they make, the type of events they show up, it's all in preparation for when they drop this album. So it's kind of like the pre-marketing tease, to when their album drops. So very similar how a brand would work if you're dropping a collection or you have a shoe drop that's happening or sneaker drop, kind of the same thing in music. So a ton of similarities across the board, but it's really fun. I love when we work with talent directly, because they are such like creative visionaries in their own right. And sometimes the talent doesn't have a big marketing background, but they innately know like what's best for them and what they're, excited about. And so it's really fun to help them craft their vision into an actual marketing plan and see it come to life.
Yeah, that's really cool. You've been credited with helping lead the women's brand at Billabong. So to kind of go off that, creating a brand, how do you think that you were able to create such a strong brand for Billabong, which is, or previously was, such like a male-dominated company?
So when I started with Billabong, they had just kind of carved out the women's side of the business. It was fairly new to them. And action sports in general, especially when you're looking at the early 2000s, was definitely male-centric for sure. And so for a lot of the surf brands, they had a women's component, but it was sort of just kind of an afterthought to what they were building. It was maybe like, oh, maybe for, our consumer's girlfriend, or maybe it's the, you know, the wife of who's actually buying the brand or something. But it quickly started to take a life of its own. And so I was first tapped in to come over to Billabong, prior to that, I was working at an action sports agency with my current partner now. It's when he had the Family 1.0 before he went to work for what was Wasserman and stuff back in the day. But long story long story short, when I came to Billabong, I was used to dealing with all men, all male athletes. And so when I came into on the women's side, it was like really fun to start exercising another part of my brain. I feel like another part of that creativity. But for that brand, I was really lucky. There was a president at the time, his name was Paul Nutty, who was a big supporter of mine, an incredible mentor for me, and just really trusted me. So, you know, a lot of times women's brands, if they aren't sort of, let's say, at the top of the pecking order of being like what is most important to the brand, sometimes that can work in your best interest because no one's paying attention while you go down and really get to, you know, have fun developing the creative and developing, you know, the brand vision, where sometimes when you're working on a division that's everyone's biggest priority, you have so many cooks in the kitchen that it's hard to get anything done. So we kind of got left alone a little bit in the early days of Billabong Women's, and we could do some really, really cool and interesting things. We did a lot of things, both within surf, obviously, like running a lot of the CT contests, but we also started to dip outside of surf. We did massive runway shows and music festivals that like no one in action sports was doing at that time. And it was a really incredible team of 8 women and our crew that was basically putting on these major events with a lot of talented designers and stuff alongside it. So we got to accomplish some really big things that kind of put us on the map, and then we just scaled really quickly from there. But we were lucky. Billabong always really championed what we were doing. They were really proud of like the women's division, and so I know that's not the case for a lot of people, but for me personally, I've had a lot of incredibly amazing experiences with the brands that I've worked with, and every single one of them was initially centered as a men's, you know, as a men's business. So I think you just, you know, you get a door open for yourself, and you just like keep marching through them, you know, and keep opening the doors. And I think when you do great work, you get more and more opportunities. And yeah, I think that was sort of the story on the women's side. That and a really incredible team, like the designers and the marketing crew, like, and the right time. I don't know if you guys are probably too young to remember Blue Crush, but do you ever hear that movie?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, so Blue Crush was like a really interesting film that was coming out at that time that everybody thought was going to be a total bomb, because usually Hollywood tends to kind of screw up anything that would normally be core surf centric. But they actually did a pretty good job with the film, and Billabong had taken a risk getting more heavily involved with the creation of that film. Sort of a lot of our product was incorporated, a lot of the marketing tied back to us, and it was a really big success, and sort of bringing a lot of new young women into the sport and you know, into the field. So I think that was probably another thing that was a big, you know, change in our industry, and we were at the forefront of it. So it paid off.
I think of like when you were saying that like there's too many cooks in the kitchen, like it's special that you were able to be on a team of women, because I don't know, like sometimes I'll watch a movie and there's like a representation of someone who's like Gen Z. And like, I'm obviously Gen Z, and I'm sitting there watching the movie, and I'm like, was there anyone like my age, like in the room with them? Like, I hadn't, like, where are you guys getting this information from? And I think a lot of companies, like on the women's side, sometimes forget that women aren't just looking for like a t-shirt with a logo that's similar to their boyfriend's, like you were saying. Like, women want their own thing too. So I think it is such a special experience that you were able to kind of like do your own thing and make Billabong Women's like your own sort of project, especially because you had so much background going into it of like what you kind of like, you knew the industry. So it's a really awesome thing that you were able to be a part of.
It's funny, like I knew the industry, but I was coming from working with a ton of like guy athletes, like motocross athletes and skaters, and like so when I came into Billabong, I think I turned down the job like 3 times until Paul was like, you have to take this job. You know, I'm like, why do you believe in me so much for this role? And I don't know, it kind of speaks a lot to like whenever you take any job, when you have and you work for someone that has that much faith in you, it really is amazing the things you can accomplish because like they prop you up, you know, they like really like fill your tank with confidence to go out and do game-changing things versus someone that's like questioning every move you do or is micromanaging you and you get kind of scared to make certain decisions. I think that's been a really great thing. Like all the jobs I've had has always been with people that are very like big thinkers and like to disrupt and do big things, whether it was Stance or Billabong. It kind of starts, you know, the time from the top down, like the CEOs down and sort of the stuff that like gets them excited. So hopefully I adopted that in the role that I'm in now, you know, and paying that forward a little bit. But yeah, it's a big deal. Good criteria when you look for your first job. It matters who you work for.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I was thinking when she was talking, it's a kind of a cool feeling to know that like you were behind something so big, like a movement like that for
Yeah.
women.
Thank you. It's really cool to see what it's turned into. I mean, for a lot of the surf brands, like for Billabong at the time, when I left, like the women's division was bigger than the men's. And I think that would have been maybe a negative thing at certain brands, but at Billabong and specifically with Paul, like he was always really, you know, really supportive of that and really supportive of female athletes. And you kind of fast forward to where it is today. I haven't been, you know, with Billabong for a long time now, but like you look forward to where, you know, women's sports are today and like the massive influx of not just like fans that are watching. I mean, pick a sport, you know, it's kind of across the board, but so many more fans and also so many more brands like engaging with athletes, engaging with audiences like in sports marketing, which is so incredibly healthy. It's so great for women across the board and great for sports in general, men's and women's, you know. So it's nice to see that really coming into its own now.
So to kind of go into your experience within like Stance Socks, so you were there as a CCO and a CMO. So what was that sort of experience like and how was it having those two different positions within Stance?
So I spent 7 years at Stance, kind of about they started and I joined about a year later into it. They were five incredible guy founders. They were launching women's, but you know, we're like, we have no idea how to talk to women. Who can we call? And so anyway, I was lucky enough to get roped in there. So it was very early stages. I played a lot of different roles. Ultimately, I played CMO and Chief Creative Officer there. But in the iterations of it, I would say, you know, both those roles to me kind of, I don't really know where one started and the other stopped because they're both sort of painting brand vision at the end of the day. And I would say that like, you know, on the marketing side, things tend to be a bit more around marketing tactics, where a lot of the creative tends to be a bit more emotive or emotional storytelling. So for my brain, they all meld together. They're all kind of one thing. But I would say the biggest lesson in Stance that I got was the joy of doing an actual startup and like creating something, you know, from nothing when we're sitting around an empty warehouse and winter jackets and like on folding chairs and, you know, crafting what the brand's going to be and how we're going to grow. And then you fast forward all those years later and it's a $130 million brand and the department I think had 24 people, you know, underneath, and it just was just such a wild like the scale of it and the speed of it I think was really phenomenal. But I think with that brand I had more fun than I've ever had in my life. Like working somewhere, we got to do things across action sports to fashion to sneaker culture to sports. We worked with everyone from Rihanna to the NBA to John Florence to like a number of obviously incredible skaters in the mix and designers and creatives. So it was like the brand itself was all based on, you know, this premise of celebrating human originality. So if you're a marketer, that leaves the door so wide open to be talking about so many different types of stories. So I think that was like the best part of that job. So whether I was CMO or Chief Creative Officer, it was really around like, how do you bring, you know, new people to the party? How do you like help tell the world what the brand is about and try to create something disruptive and different out there. So we had a lot of fun. Like not many people would expect. We had, I think, our New York store, we had Wu-Tang through a concert in our store. I had Rihanna behind the cash register for 2 hours, and we shut down Broadway when she came through and did a big blowout event. But we tried to just keep doing a lot of things that you would never expect a sock brand to do. And I think that's kind of why we became a bit of a like cultural phenomenon, and why we got a lot of great people to work with us, because we did different things. So that was a lot of fun.
That's so cool.
So to add on to to the collaboration, what was the process of like determining if a collaboration was a good fit for like your brand, and like, should we do this? Should we pass it up?
You know what the hardest thing is about collaborations is saying no.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times when you get brands that come to you, your instinct is like opportunity, so you want to do it. But collaborations are as helpful as they are distracting, right? So like they're either doing really great things for your brand, or they're really diluting your brand. So the cadence and how many, and I say this from experience because, at a point in stance, we were doing way too many because we had so many people coming to us, so many great big opportunities. And we saw awesome creativeness that could happen in every single one of them, but it was just like way too many. And I think ultimately that's hurtful. But I think like finding a good collaborator is usually when you have very similar goals, but you're bringing something to the table that is almost a juxtaposition or something unexpected. Like if you take two super like-minded brands and they do a collab together, you're like, oh, okay. It's not that interesting. But I think if you take things like when we worked with Rihanna, I think the first question everyone on the planet was saying is like, why is Rihanna doing a sock collab? Like it just seemed so not in her, like the least thing that she should be worried about, in creating. But like she had a real vision for what she was doing. And our brand at the time, like we were tapping into all this like emerging culture, and we had a lot of like our fan base was really, really feverish for the brand, and really sort of niche and streetwear and sneaker culture and music. And so her doing that and also aligning with Puma at the same time was super smart for her to do. And so she could step in and help play a creative direction role in like what we were building. And it ended up being like a really cool story, for both parties. But I think, if you're a brand and you're looking at collaborating with another brand, you want to say like, are we after the same goals? If one brand is saying, hey, we want to work with you because we are looking for revenue, we're just looking for a big commercial opportunity. And the other partner is like, well, we want to work with you because you're disruptive and you're cool and you're niche and you're small, then those are already going to be like two conflicting goals, right? And so when you have two conflicting goals, usually you kind of start butting heads early on, and then the whole thing is just much more of a challenge. But when you start out with the same goal and the same vision, and you're marching, towards the same thing, you start to see every party just really leaning in. And I think that's when it feels like the most authentic and it's the most beneficial to the brand.
Just measuring the pros and cons of working with each brand, trying to find that line to get through.
Yeah, and finding unexpected partners is the best. And yeah, just don't do too many. Don't get on the habit of like that's where your growth is coming from when you're on the back of somebody else. Like you really need to make sure your brand stands for something on its own, and people know who you are and what you do, and then everything else is additive versus like being really confusing. If you do a million different brand collaborations, right, you start having like a personality disorder, in the sense of like, wait, you're edgy, wait, you're high fashion, wait, you're sneaker culture, wait, you're over here, and so I think sometimes you just gotta like have the discipline to say no, and it makes the ones you do much bigger.
There was a makeup brand. I feel like I shouldn't say the name. It feels so shady, but they did this collaboration. It wasn't really a collaboration. It was more so like a project where they had like a commercial kind of centered around like two goth people. And I
Uh-huh.
remember seeing it and I was like, that's so cool because like that was something I grew up on. Like I was an emo kid. So seeing that, it was like, oh my God, like representation. It's so cool. They're going into like
Yep.
this whole other sect of makeup. And then I think maybe a year later, they collaborated with a male comedian. And I remember seeing it and I was like, that's just like so weird. Like, what is the connection? So I do
Yeah.
think, like what you were saying, like sometimes trying to do too much is it can make or break your company because people do have like an association thing going on in their brain. So like some people might not buy from that makeup brand anymore, remembering that one
Mm-hmm.
campaign they did out of hundreds. So
Mm-hmm.
it really
Mm-hmm.
does depend on who you're collaborating with. It can make or break what you end up doing.
Yeah, completely. And then hopefully you're always able to like execute it in a way that feels like what you're, you should never like not be your brand when you're working with somebody else. But a lot of times that's hard because a smaller brand might work with another partner and feel like intimidated because maybe they're a lot bigger, they have more money or they have more followers, like whatever it might be. And a lot of times like one brand can kind of lose themselves in another. But when everyone's bringing something important to the table, it's like really great even footing, and I think it makes for the best partnerships.
I mean, you see that a lot now in video games as well. A lot of like
Mm.
collaborations where it's like what is this video game about anymore? And
Yeah.
it's kind
Do you
of
have one that you like? Do you have a video collab game that you loved?
um I I did not anymore though. Just because of that reason, but I'm not going to say the
Yeah.
name, but
Okay.
it's
We don't want to give too much love to someone here.
exactly.
Yeah.
I got
It's a
you.
similar kind of situation.
I feel like with like GTA and like all like the NHL games and stuff, like I like didn't really play video games with my brother like growing up, but like I would watch him and I like associate the games with the music that they played. And I remember thinking
Hmm.
it was like so cool when I heard a band that I liked in like GTA on their radio and it like sticks with you. Like
Yeah.
I can remember one of my
Yeah.
favorite songs I was in GTA and like I'll never let that go in my brain. I remember it was like the most euphoric feeling it being in the game.
Yeah, each video game has like a certain lifestyle, and it's like if you change that up, then it ruins the video game.
Exactly.
That's so interesting. Yeah, that's like all speaks to kind of experiential marketing, right? Because you're creating like a core memory or you're having an experience with a soundtrack that's like adding into that. It's just cool how just the psychology of how branding works, right? Like how you have fond memories of certain things and you can associate it with a certain soundtrack. I always think that that's super interesting.
So to kind of like play off of that, like now that we've talked about like music, makeup, fashion, like there's so many
Mhm.
different things that play into marketing. One of our questions is, what advice would you give to a college student who is interested in marketing and trying to
Mhm.
build a brand? Do you think that gaining the trust of brands was important early on in your career? And how do you think you would help a college student navigate gaining that trust from a brand
Mm,
so early on in their career?
that's a really good question. So I have a college age daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll give you the advice I give her. She's in international business, so she's kind of following in some of these footsteps. But like, I think the interesting thing, if you're talking like when you're getting out of college and you're going into your first job, is like, I always tell her, like, your 20s are for exploration and experimenting and being creative and trying as many different things as you can to find what you're most excited about and learning. Most importantly, learning. I know there's a lot of people that want to get out of school and go straight into starting their own business. And I mean, you can learn a lot online, you can learn a lot with AI, but I really don't think anything replaces like learning from other humans and having a really great mentor in your life. So no matter how smart you are, I think it is really good to learn from a brand, learn from like being around other people and in different roles, because you can soak up a ton of education that you can't necessarily get, online or through chat
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
GPT these
yeah,
days. But I'm always like 20s is for learning, 30s is for earning. So like that's where you're making all your money. 40s are for becoming an expert in something, and 50s are for sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in that sort of a course, I would say, like, coming out of school, learn as much as you can, dabble in as many things. Don't get into a single brand and stay there for 5 years. You know what I mean? Even if you don't know you want to be, maybe you're not an entrepreneur that wants to start their own brand, but you want to, you want to work for a different brand. I think the more experience you can get from multiple people when you're young will serve you really, really well. And then once you get into your, later 20s, then you can start to settle down and really understand what you're most passionate about and then kind of dig in there. But I think for any young person coming into a job, when you show up with initiative and you show up like eager to like accomplish big things, and I mean, initiative is the biggest one for me. It doesn't have to be someone that is a textbook learner by any means, especially if you're talking marketing. Marketing is a people person job, and it's a creative, critical thinking job. you know I think that like all the textbook stuff you can learn about digital marketing and the formulas that go into that side of marketing are super valuable, and you can get a lot of places. But innately, like, understanding people and understanding what motivates people and using like all your creativity to problem solve. If you're working for a certain brand that is plateauing and they can't figure out why, and you find like a new consumer group to go after or a new product category to launch into, like, those are the things that I think working for people really helps you learn. It's hard when you're young, like, you don't know what you don't know. So it's like hard to say, if you have all the tools you need to go start your big, your own brand successfully off the bat. There's a plenty of people that are really lucky and fortunate in that way, and maybe have good mentors surrounding them. But I think sometimes people are in such a race, to feel like you have to like come out of college and like automatically you're a brand founder and you're doing these things, when you have such a long road ahead and plenty of time that yeah, when you don't have any mortgage payments or heavy responsibilities, use that time to live cool places, meet cool people, work for different types of cool brands, and just soak in as much experience as you can.
I always thought it was so interesting. Like, when I was originally, I was a business major, and now I'm communications. And I always think it's so interesting that like marketing is like a business realm, right? Marketing is within business. And I think because it's under that umbrella, people don't realize how creative marketing is and how much plays into it, and how much personality you have to have, and how much personality you have to like inflict onto the company you're working with. So I don't know, for a while I was, oh, I wish I was a nurse. Like, I'd graduate and know exactly what I was doing. But like, there's beauty in not knowing what I'm doing. There's beauty in any of us not knowing what we're doing, because we could all do something different and then change that. And like, we can continue to be creative throughout that, rather than like pigeonholing ourselves.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I mean, I came from someone that did like long stints at brands, to what I do now with my company is I work with, probably 5 brands at a time, and it's ever changing like categories and industries. And I really love that. Like, it's really fun to, build a health and wellness brand and like learn about that whole industry, and then go, oh, you know what we could do cool and different? Like health and wellness has been treated like a medical community for like a really, really long time. And just probably in the past year and a half, you're starting to see brands like Function or other brands come in and infuse, fashion and art and storytelling in ways to not make it feel cold and clinical. And that's like a good example of pulling creative influences in from other industries and mixing up something new and applying it to a new category. That is like the most fun about marketing, is that it is ever changing. And it's funny, like, I have a lot of conversations with friends these days about AI, like most people in almost any field, except maybe nursing. I don't know, maybe not that one, but
Hopefully not.
it is so interesting these days on, like, there's so many huge benefits that come with AI that can help like amplify your creativity to the next level. But there's also people that are just, people that aren't in marketing, that just funnel everything to, ChatGPT as an example, and going like, oh, this is how you do marketing because the chat told me this is how it goes, and it's like, don't do that.
Like, that's not
So
human,
yeah,
it's just not.
Totally. And there's certain nuances that like marketing will always have that I don't think can be replicated in the same way with AI, which is, the seeing around the corners type of thing, and like knowing like the cultural nuances of different categories that you might be into, like whether it's sneaker culture or it's surfing. Like if you guys surf, you know that there's some sort of like rules within surfing, whether like how the imagery comes across or things that you would do that are either like super lame or it feels on brand. And those are things that aren't going to be tapped into, um, in the same way if it's not done through like a lived experience. But interesting. It's gonna make for a really interesting decade ahead, I think, in marketing.
And AI doesn't know that like a lot of people don't like AI, like
Yeah.
that's why it's so important that people actually have like a hands-on experience, because I know like being like I'm heavily on social media because that's a field I would like to go into. And I know that like on social media there's like a sect of people who don't mind AI, but there's a huge sect of people that won't continue working with a brand if they do use AI. And like if you were
Yeah.
to ask chat that, they're not going to give you like they don't know that. So it is important to be human, or else there's a lack of understanding of like what people are looking for and what people don't want to see.
Are you guys feeling like you and your like group of friends? How are you guys feeling about AI these days? Do you not even AI, just like technology in general? Are you guys your generation is either going to be the one that sort of backlashes against it like eventually, or you'll double down on it. So it'll be interesting to see.
What do you think, Jacob? What's your opinion?
AI, I just think you can't really copy a human. There's so
Yeah.
many emotions, so much unwritten rules, so much like body language that goes into talking and being a human, and you just can't get that with a computer. Like it might give you a fact, but it won't give you extra additional information about it. It
Like,
won't give you anything else.
I
yeah, the
agree.
context around it.
I feel the same way because I'm not going to say like I'm anti AI, like I won't need it or like I won't ever use it because that would be hypocritical. But at the same time, being someone who is creative and I like to be creative and I'm also just like very human and I'm okay with being very human. I think that I'd rather see humanity within something than see something that's just generated based on like other people's
Yeah.
opinions of like millions of opinions that get put into a chatbot. I'd
Yeah.
rather hear it and go up to people and talk to people and have that experience than type it into a laptop and then, like it being told back to me.
I think that's what's really cool. I mean, your guys' whole class is around action sports. I think this is like what the biggest opportunity is within the action sports industry, is the fact that they're very like high touch, like experiential sports and the culture around them. Like, with Billabong, doing some work with Billabong, I'm like, it's kind of coming back to where people are going to want to interact with brands that, like, the phrases like that touch grass, that are like grounded in nature and are out doing things and adventurous and all these things, these experiential things that are in real life. So it's going to be really cool to watch some of that come around full circle, I think, for action sports brands, and kind of see how different brands make the most of it. Whenever the pendulum swings too far one way, there's always a counterbalance that happens that, brings it back to the other side. So maybe the further tech pushes, the more, human and nature and, and getting outside is going to matter.
So I want to ask you, because you're a trailblazer in this industry, I did want to ask you about your upcoming project, Fervor.
Yeah. So Fervor is a really, really cool project. This is kind of stems from, I was approached by a pro skater by the name of Kyle Walker, who you're going to meet here in just a second. And he is like, not only is he like an incredibly talented athlete, but he is also like one of the most curious humans I know, in terms of like self-improvement and entrepreneurism, and like always sort of pushing the boundaries of things. And he had come to me and we started talking about, something that he wanted to develop in terms of like skate tricks and stuff like that on a video, or on a content platform. And the conversation quickly blew into something wildly different to what we're creating now, which is a platform called Fervor. And Fervor is a subscription content platform that is curated with the top 75 athletes and influential voices of the action sports world. So we're in the build of it now, so we can't give a million different details, but very excited for this to happen. There's so many reasons something like this is so needed. There's, a lot of the media sort of fell out from action sports when print media was crossing over to digital. I think that was very hard for our world. Action sports in general was a little bit kind of held our arms around what we felt was like core and true to our market. And I think things from print and not like, I mean, not that it was anti-digital, but I think we just like really held on to the old ways of like how this industry had worked in the past. And so long story short, I think that was really hard on media. And so media started to fall out. This is the rise of Instagram. Then all athletes sort of turned into being their own media channels, right? So without having the surfers and surfings and trans worlds of the world, it started to just athletes would lean on their own social media to grow their audience, and brands started to do the same thing. So what happened is it really fragmented the entire industry. So without that hub, and now with all these brand fans kind of going to a million different places to sort of get their content, I think we saw a real bottom fall out of our industry a little bit. There was no sort of centralized hub that was celebrating all these sports and the brands in it. And so that sort of, diluted portion of our industry kind of made it suffer. I think it kind of hurt a lot of the I would say maybe the way that action sports was being promoted beyond sort of the core bubble of surf world and skate world, et cetera, that was starting to go away. And so you start to see athletes that were like having issues with some of their brand deals. Brands weren't putting their money in athletes as much as they were trying to find other ways to advertise or market or promote, their brand. So by creating this platform, we're kind of giving the rights back to the athletes and the creators. So it's basically, they retain the majority of all the revenue that comes off the platform in their own channel. And it's a way to help not just fund all their creative efforts, but it's also a way for all these athletes to kind of link arms and sort of create that shared audience opportunity. So, they can start cross-pollinating audiences and growing as a group instead of everyone sort of being on their own.
We talked about that in class. Like, we learned about how with the action sports industry, there was a lot of gatekeeping where like people were able to create their own content and they were in charge of the content that they released. And I think like you were saying, like once things became digitalized, like it was kind of harder to do that because you can just like screen record and share now. You could just post whatever you want. So I do think that this is so innovative because it really does give them that gatekeeping back where they are in charge of what they do and where it goes and what they post, and they don't have to rely on a huge brand, and they don't also have to worry about it just getting spread out and people not knowing the name, of the person.
Right, because right now, like the ones that do post some, it's like, you're going to, let's say, YouTube, where YouTube's amazing, but it's kind of like that, like the Yellow Pages or the Amazon, or and I don't mean this in a derogatory way to say the junk drawer, but like it's not junk. I'm just saying it's like everything is in there.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily go there to discover new things. You go there to find something you're already looking for. Where I think Fervor creates the opportunity where it's curated. So like our big thing with this is it's sort of like, I give the comparison of MTV back in the day. MTV curated youth culture through the lens set of music. This is the same thing, a curation of youth culture, but through the lens set of action sports. So I think, when you're kind of getting the best of content, I think that helps you sort of weed through all of the noise that's out there. And also because it's not algorithm based, so you're in control of your own feed again as a consumer, like you're watching what you want to watch type of thing versus like, being at the fate. Like right now for a lot of creators, whether it's, a TikTok or Instagram, the algorithms are always changing and favoring, let's say it's short form content, or now the music track has to be this because it's trending. And so it's so hard to get like really good creative original work viewed, because you're competing with all the formulas that are out there that you usually have to play into. So this sort of frees creators of that and creates an opportunity for them to sort of be the owners of their own accounts and be able to make money off of all the content they're doing versus putting it out on all the channels. That doesn't mean they're not going to have Instagram or they're not going to be other places, but it means that they'll be able to drop longer form video pieces and stuff on their own channel and hopefully be able to create create a good living out of doing so and not be so dependent on outside brands.
Yeah, that's an exciting idea. Just giving them the power, giving the power back to them to let them do what they want to do on their own without having to go through other channels.
Yes, I totally agree. And it kind of like inspires too, like that next generation of audience. And again, it like brings the whole industry up is what I think we're going to see happen. It's like those group of athletes and creators working together are going to raise the profile of the sport. It's going to bring new fans to the sport. It's going to benefit the brands. And so I think it's like that domino effect, and I love that all the athletes are excited to like work together on something like this, because I think that's like the best things happen, is kind of like that rising tide floats all boats. I think that's the right phrase. But yeah, it's that kind of a situation here.
I'm excited to hear what Kyle has to say about it. I feel like that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, he's awesome.
We would like to welcome Kyle Walker to the show. How you doing today, man?
Doing great. How y'all doing?
Good.
We're doing good.
Kyle, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your skating career, and what have you been up to recently with Fervor?
Short summary of the skating career, or just
Whatever you want, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Give him your highlight reel, Kyle.
I started skating in 3rd grade. I was 8. I traded a bag of Lay's chips, original by the way, for a pair of trucks at lunch.
Wow.
Prison style. And then I got off the school bus at my friend's house who gave me the trucks. And that's all I had was the trucks. So I asked for a board for Christmas. Got a Mongoose board from Walmart for Christmas. And then the rest was history. I won a contest when I was maybe like 11 in Oklahoma. And then I got a trip out here to California, Lake Forest to be exact, a contest called Goofy versus Regular, and completely blew my mind. Went back to Oklahoma. It is what it is. It's mellow, it's boring, but I definitely went home and I was like, what was that place, California? That was insane. Perfect weather, all that, and yeah, after that trip, I really wanted to pursue it as a career, and I think right around that time I won $150 skating. I was like, oh, you can get paid for what you love to do, and that's kind of where it trickled in. And at 11 I was working heat and air conditioning with my stepdad for allowance, so that sucked. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do that, so that was more motivation. And then 3 of my friends, all older, were moving out here in, what was that? I was like 16, 17. And thankfully, my mom allowed me to come out here. And I was homeschooling then, but not. And yeah, so thankfully it worked out. Came out here when I was, I would say 17. Volcom helped me out around 18-ish. And was getting $500 a month for them. Thought I was rich. And yeah, that's kind of where it fully pursued. And then Van started hooking me up. And yeah, thankfully stars aligned.
And then he's Thrasher Skater of the Year, and then he's
2016, I was Thrasher Skater of the Year. I created a shoe with Vans. 2014 we started. It came out in 2016. Thankfully, it's still around and doing great. So that's a huge blessing.
That's a 10-year run on a signature shoe.
Yeah, that's a good one.
insane.
He was being humble.
Yeah.
He was being humble.
Yeah. He's
Yeah, I'm not
this,
really good with talking about myself and
this
my
is what
achievements. It's like, I don't
this
know.
is so I'm gonna brag about Kyle. Kyle is like one of the most beloved skaters, I'm gonna say it, in the industry.
Hmm.
Like
All
that
the
would be insane to
accolades.
personally say, you know. Sorry to interrupt.
Of course, you're
Yeah.
never going to say that, but I'm just going to say like, but it's important as that ties into fervor because I think whenever you are building a brand and you have startups, half the reason people start to believe in whatever idea you're doing is the people that are behind it. And
Hmm.
so that is 1,000% the stance story. It's 100%, I think, what Unlisted has been for me, and also with fervor now too. I think the fact that this brand is being built like by and with like athletes is huge, and Kyle is a founder, and I think the one thing that was always like so interesting to me when we'd go into like any meetings with any of these skaters, like one of the first conversations is like, oh, it's Kyle, like I'm in. And so, for any of your audience that is looking to go out to develop and start things, the chemistry of the people that you bring to the table, and I think just like again, like the reputation that Kyle has in the industry is is top of the class. So I'm really honored to be working with Kyle, and I know he'll never say any of that about himself. So there you go.
Thank
I
you.
did it for him.
Appreciate it. Yes, it's a two-way street with Candy, you know. I'm the skater going entrepreneur, learning a lot, and she's kind of already been a captain at a lot of ships. So we're learning together.
Hmm.
Yeah, so actually, Kyle, can you give us a perspective as a skater? What is it like working with Candy? Like, is it nice to have a balance of an athlete's perspective with her marketing experience?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Let's see. Casey, he's an agent at the Family. I came to him with the idea, and he's like, "Oh, you got to meet Candy." I was like, "All right, cool, yeah." And he introduced us together, and that's how we first met. And yeah, it's definitely been like an easy integration with me and Candy. I guess I'll gas you up a little bit. It's super awesome to learn from someone that's been in the any field, you know, but especially one that you've been in a lot longer, but also in all the back end rooms, you know, like I'm kind of, I don't want to say in front of the camera and on the forefront, but it's like, let's say
Mhm.
Vans, for example, I'm an athlete, so I'm like talent or whatever you want to call it. And then people like Candy, they're behind the curtains, they're like creating the curtains, they're making all the calls, and for her to do that with Stance, you know, her own company, um, and just to learn from someone so wise is awesome, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I always tell her
Exactly.
all the time, I'm like, hey, whatever you think for this, I trust you, so you make the decision because I'm not wise enough. I'm learning. You've already done these rodeos, and I'm just getting my boots laced up. Well, I guess you don't lace boots up. I'm getting my boots on, and it's exciting. Yeah, it's awesome to learn
Yeah.
from someone like Candy.
Hmm. I think that's like kind of what makes fervor. That's why it's going to be so special because it's like the mixing, the integration of both like
Hmm.
ideas.
Yeah, I
Well,
think it's
and the fact she believes in it is huge, you know. I feel like the people in your corner with anything, whether it's something like this. I don't know. I love being surrounded by people that are way better than you. And it's not in a competition form. It's just wisdom and experience, you know? And then I might be smarter than her in a couple other areas, but, you know, she's heard me say it a million times, but it's like teamwork makes the dream work. Um, and then if you're in a room full of people and it's not, what am I trying to say? It's like, you want to almost be, I look at it as like the least knowledgeable person in a room that you aspire to be in because you have nothing but room to grow, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and then also with building something, she's built plenty of businesses and I'm newer to it. So it's like, it's awesome. It's a great experience and I'm excited to see where it goes.
and we're both doing like tech is a first for both of us. So tech is new for me too. So there's there's new things that we're both learning, which makes it a lot of fun. But yeah, it's been a joy.
So Kyle, like when you started skating, what was like the shifting? What was like the difference versus like when you started and now?
The difference from starting skating to now.
I like asked that
Like you mean
poorly,
the
but
the
the
industry or
industry
being an
Yes.
itself.
athlete?
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
Okay.
obviously when you first started, like people weren't using a platform such as Fervor, you know, so how do you think you noticed the biggest amount of change in the time that you have been skating?
Well, growing up, it was you had to wait for videos to come out. There was no, we all didn't have a phone attached to our hip. Um, so let's say more so in-person demos where pros would come through with a team, and it was like a big thing, you had to like wait for something, and now it's all super quick. But I don't know if I'm answering this right, but since most of that, I don't want to say it's gone, but all the main magazines are kind of gone, and we're all relying on YouTube or Instagram or Patreon. So again, I don't know if I'm answering this correct, but
We
Fervor
we
is
were kind of
really,
we were talking about that too, like on that point when you're talking about how the industry used to have these demos and like people would come out. There's a lot of like one-on-one interaction with a fan base that kind of really went away as, there were fewer events and less media sort of opportunities that were creating those events and brands started to do it less. So like that was one of the things that Kyle always talked about with Fervor too, is like creating up more of a two-way conversation between like the athletes and the fans. So with this platform, there's going to be opportunity to have one-on-one kind of conversations that just aren't really happening anymore in the industry. I think that part's pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah. Do y'all know what Cameo is?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, so I feel like that type of stuff is cool, but to have, the highest surfers, moto, skate, whatever it is, really connect more with their audience or community. I just feel like that's awesome. And back then growing up, you couldn't just message your favorite Olympian or something like that. So that's why I'm kind of encouraging people to do that more. So I feel like even just one message or engagement with someone that really looks up to you could change someone's life. It's like anyone who gave you time of the day, whether whatever you guys love to do, it could just be that one little switch. And I feel like it's weird to be in that seat and be like, oh, I know I have that um inspiration to someone, but I feel like it's good to tap into our 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old self and just give back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gives people the platform to make those dreams that they had when they were a kid come true.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
I
Yeah,
think
because
too.
someone's aspiring to be like Candy right now, and if she took 5 minutes out of her day to spit some wisdom or just give someone the time, it's like that's huge, you
Yeah.
know. And I feel like coming from Oklahoma, that's where that stems from, because New York, LA, big cities, it's more frequent, and
Yeah.
then Oklahoma or smaller cities, you can feel kind of out of touch.
It's a different playing field.
100%.
Yeah, that was like a education component we wanted to make sure was like put in here. So in the same way that you have a how I built this. It's like, what is our version within the action sports world of emerging brands and how those brand founders started? Or if you wanted to learn what it was like to be a Vans shoe designer for a day, like what does that entail? Because you just don't get that kids don't get that access, and to understand what even career opportunities exist. You guys are so fortunate to have a class that is all based around action sports because, for probably a lot of you in that class, you either grew up surfing or skating or snowboarding or something that was like, had you drawn to this curriculum. But for a lot of people, maybe it's a sport they participate in, but they'd have no idea how you get from being an 11-year-old in Oklahoma to finding a career as a filmer, as a designer, as a marketer, or anything in between. So I think that's a cool opportunity for the brand.
I think it's
Yeah,
also.
I got a quick question. Did y'all create this podcast at y'all school, or?
So our teacher had the idea of it. It's his idea. It's Norb's idea, but running it all by ourselves.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. Let's go.
It's cool.
I love that. Shout out
Yeah.
Norb too.
Yeah.
It is a class project.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have like a
That's
survey
awesome.
team too. So like the survey team is interviewing people in Wilmington and kind of getting their insight on, like surf shops basically to kind of get people's opinions on what they look for in surfing and just like in the general action sports industry. So it's not just the podcasting team. We also have the whole survey team who's getting like the analytics, and we're like having the one-on-one conversations with people within the industry.
Super
If
cool.
they had classes like this in high school, kids would like to go to school more. If you,
Oh,
that's the
100%.
best thing
For
about
sure.
college is you start to like learn about things you're truly actually interested in, and it feeds that curiosity, you know.
Mhm.
So, Norb, next up, take us to high school.
Yeah, it's so
that's
cool.
awesome.
Like I've never taken a class in college where I can like talk to my professor about like the hardcore bands I listened to or the movies I grew up watching. And like even with my dad, like he's a huge surfer, so I never got to like say to my dad like, oh, I'm interviewing Peter Townend. Like being able to take a class where we have these opportunities is so life-changing, and it really has been so eye-opening, because I feel like with a lot of jobs, people think that you have to know someone. It's so narrow in the way that they, grow in the industry. Like a lot of people might not assume to go into action sports because they might not pursue one themselves. But I think taking classes like this, like really kind of widened all of our perspectives, where it's like, wow, like we all have a connection to it. You don't have to be a surfer, you don't have to be a skater, but you could still know and you could still participate within the industry. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, it's especially cool just having that connection from the student world to the action sports world. Like I never in a million years thought I'd be meeting PT and Bob at Night. I just didn't think that was in my cards, but
Or Candy Harris, exactly. Like a creative director of Billabong, like it's incredible.
But getting to talk with them and interview them, especially interviewing you guys right now, it's just this is a crazy thing to think about.
It's surreal.
Well, we need really great, smart, creative young people in the industry. So gather your friends.
Yeah, keep me in
We
mind.
need all the good ideas coming back in. So that's great.
Yeah,
Love
it's
that.
really exciting. And thank you guys. Like, it means a lot. Some industries are not as forgiving, not as welcoming, but I think the awesome thing about in action sports is that people within action sports are so nice. They're so welcoming, and it's such like a, I don't know, creative industry. People are, like you were saying, Candy, like disruptive. So I think it's a big thank you from all of us to feel welcome in the industry from people like you. And I'm rambling, but yeah, we appreciate the welcoming atmosphere that you guys create.
Oh, well, good. So come to California.
Yeah.
Got a lot of brands out here that would love your help, I'm sure.
Well, Candy, Kyle, we can't thank you guys enough for coming on the podcast. You've been awesome guests, very inspirational. We really enjoyed having you guys on.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you
Yep.
guys.
You
Have
guys
a
have
good
a
one.
good day.
Appreciate you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.